It seems ridiculous, and I think, head teachers, deputy heads, leaders who get out of teaching, I think that's where you can become a little bit crazy and start expecting things of staff that you don't normally do yourself. And so I really do think it's about modelling and demonstrating, excellent practice as opposed to just telling someone what it is. But one of the things I try to do in my lessons is when if I've asked the kids to do something, is to kind of show them the answer at the end. So one of the things I kind of wanted you to do was kind of compare your outstanding criteria with what the official answer is. And I'm sure you'll all say, yeah, I got all of those right. So, but I'll not verbally assess at this point. But as important as the activity that we've just done is just actually unpacking the process that I went through to get you to do that activity and what was the purpose of it. Yeah? So I just want to spend about 5 or 10 minutes looking at that. So I just want you to, in the same group, I just want you to talk about what did you think about the activity itself? Why was it better, for example, than me just giving you out 2 pages with the criteria on it? Maybe it wasn't better, but why was it better to do something like that than just getting you to read 2 pages of text? What did you notice about any extension? Was there any extension activity? Did I ask any particular groups to do anything else as the activity was as you were involved in the processing of that activity? And then finally, and you're probably all in different subject areas, but how could you apply a similar style to something that you might teach in your lesson? How would that approach to a lesson work for you in a lesson that you needed to deliver? Does that make sense? Yeah? So just quickly, just talk about the activity itself. Why was it better than just reading it? So what extension was involved, and how could you apply it? And if I give you about 10 minutes, yeah, and then we'll have some feedback before we move on. Itself then. Well, anybody kind of want to talk about how, is that a useful way to get some information across, and if so, why is that more useful than just getting people to read?
We thought it was good because, you were conveying the same information, say, if you gave them a newspaper or so, because we didn't know what it was, we had to read it very carefully, so we could absorb the information better than just reading it.
Yeah. And as you were reading it, you weren't just reading it to yourself, were you? You were talking to each other, and you were getting that confirmation from other people in your group. Yeah, that's right, or no, I think. Yeah, so it allowed for a bit of discussion about that as well. Anything else?
I think that some activities is because something's to finish quickly, it's good to do that when you have to carried on the activity.
Absolutely.
The rest caught up.
And there's a myth that it's very often the low ability students that are the troublemakers in a lesson. Actually, you're more able, can be as challenging, if not more challenging, if they're left bored in a lesson. And very often just thinking about what questions you can get them or what you need to get them to do with the activity that they have just done. It's just about thinking for them more. So, for example, the extension activity was what? What would we ask to do as an extension?
Or what's the most important, etc.
Yeah. And so you're getting your pupils, just by doing that, you get them to make judgments. And what we want our pupils to get the higher grades, get the higher national curriculum levels, and to get the higher grades at GCSE in the English system, it's by getting them to evaluate and analyse. And that's just simply by ordering things and then justifying, well, I think this is most important because. And it's just little things that you can add into your lesson like that that can really make a difference between just a description and getting people to actually analyse and evaluate. Just little differences that don't take a huge amount of planning. Also the cards, those card sorts. For example, if I was you, I would laminate them and I would keep them because you'll use them, class after class, year after year. I've got my Battle of Hastings lesson that I bring out, every year. I've been teaching it for 15 years. The kids absolutely love it. It's something that I got from a resource book, cut it up in cards, laminated it, and I bring it out, every year when I'm teaching, why William won the Battle of Hastings. It's just one of those lessons that you always just love teaching. But it's about keeping those resources so you're not repeating things and doing those things over and over again. Although those ones I will throw in the bin, so I don't have to take them back and get into a fight with Ryanair, but it's about keeping some of those resources and just doing them once. And then fine-tuning. Anything else? So I got you to order.
Probably appeal to type of learners, the visual aesthetic.
Yeah. Getting kids to physically get involved with the text, especially boys. One of the things, when we entered kids for IGCSE, which is the international GCSE for English. Again, the game we play is we enter them for 2 boards, an easier one and one that we have to enter them for. They changed the goalposts, but the 8 kids who missed out were 8 boys who got a D over a couple of marks rather than a C. Because we still have a massive issue of getting boys to engage with text. And if I'd have given out, to the boys in the room here, if I'd have given out 2 pages of text, you probably wouldn't have engaged with it at all. And that's some of the problems. I'm assuming you've had those issues here in schools, in primary and secondary, about getting kids engaged with the text. And giving them like that on cards, small bits to read at a time, digest, talk to, evaluate, is much more effective, particularly for boys, but it also, anything you do for one group also benefits every group that you have in your class as well. So it's not as if another group's losing out, but it really helps boys by giving them the text in that way. Anything else? Any reminders? Sorry.
It's good for assessment because the students are self-assessing, they're also peer assessing in their groups, and then the teacher will go around and assess them.
Yeah. And I can very quickly, once I've seen a group that had it finished, I can very quickly scan the room, go over to that group and set that particular group the extension activity. Without any disruption to the rest of the lesson, without singling any group out. That is another key. I'll talk about differentiation in a bit, but not singling any group out. But I can very quickly assess by scanning the room and see that group is finished and ready for the extension. Also timings, I was going to say. Constantly reminding your students about how long they have left for an activity is very, very important. Because, again, particularly boys, we will always do the bare minimum in a lesson. And you'll quite happily sit back. If you've been told you've got, 15, 20 minutes for an activity, and that's all you've got to do, you might do it in 5, but you'll take it 15 or 20 minutes, quite frankly. But constantly reminding people and reminding that there is an extension activity available as well and encouraging them to do it just spurs them on. Yeah? And those constant reminders about timing. The other thing is, there are 4. What you'll do is, if you'll spend a lot of time, one of the things your head of faculty will get you to do, will spend a lot of time sharing pass criteria. So what does an A grade look like? What does a B, a C grade look like? And this is an activity that I might use when I'm doing that with my students for history and teaching English next year. What I didn't bother doing was share with you what a satisfactory lesson, what the judgments are for that. And what we call it an RIP lesson, a requires improvement lesson, because you don't want to get one of those. Yeah. So I didn't bother sharing the criteria because, quite frankly, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in you being interested in what a satisfactory lesson looks like or a requires improvement lesson. I'm only interested in you knowing what a good and outstanding lesson looks like, because that's all I want you to strive for. Likewise, when you're sharing criteria for your A, B, C, I wouldn't bother sharing what a D or an E looks like, because I don't want my kids to get a D or an E or strive for it. So I make those decisions in my planning as well. Yeah? So you're all the time, it's always about raising expectations. Okay, so those are some things to think about when you are planning some of your activities and planning for the different groups of learners as well. And we'll look at some more of that as we go through. Any questions or further comments? Right, so resources. What resources would you, I'll talk for a little bit now, and then we'll do another activity. What resources should you expect? I have to say, you're probably going to some schools that are very, very well resourced. Particularly academies, primary and secondary academies, had a lot of funding over the past 2 years because Michael Gove, I'll mention him again, really wants to encourage the break-up, the dismantling of comprehensive education system in England. And he wants individual schools to take responsibility for themselves and get converted to become academies. And as an incentive, we got more money to do that. So I think we got about £500,000 or £1 million extra pounds in the budget to do that, because it's part of the dismantling of the centralisation of education in England. And then, as I've said, our school will then take on the responsibility for 4 other schools in the area, as opposed to all of us being under the local authority, which is what schools were in the past. So lots of money was put into schools as a result. And you'll find when you go to your schools, about 85-90% of any budget in the school goes to staffing. It's a huge amount of money spent on staffing schools in England, which leaves about 15 or 20% of that, 4 or 5 million quid for the rest of these resources. And I'm sure, I hope you've had experience through your training of using some of those resources. But the interactive whiteboard. The other thing I forgot to mention was I got my scribe up. And it's always very good to get the naughty boy to write things down on the board as well. Yeah, no offence. But it just means, it's just another technique of getting them. So with the interactive whiteboard, kids are fantastic with technology. I've learned all of my, technical, however limited it is, but all of my, technical ability comes from the students, because they are just miles ahead of well, certainly me. Your generation's probably, much more akin to what they're familiar with. But I've learned it all from them. So they are brilliant with ICT, and by bringing as much of that into your lessons. The whiteboards, when I started, I used to have to book a TV. You probably remember this, that I used to have to wheel and get the technician to help me up the stairs. I taught on the 4th floor of a tower block as an NQT in East London. And I had to book that about a week in advance. And I was showing my video about Elizabeth when she was torturing the bishops and burning them at the stake, which the kids love. I had to book it a week in advance. Nowadays, with my interactive whiteboard, I can just go onto YouTube and get that clip instantly. Even if I think about something in a lesson, I've got instant access to it. And that's what the kids are used to as well. So we as a school, and the schools that you're going to, have done and are doing as much as they can to keep up with that. So you'll find when you go to your schools, lots of the materials and resources will already be prepared, and there'll be lots of PowerPoints that you will simply have to take and adapt and amend to your lesson. So if anybody's concerned about not having, I've spoken to one or two coming to us, concerned about not having, any lesson plans or any of the curriculum at the minute, you'll be surprised about how much exists in the schools that we do actually go to. And there's central systems in the schools, I'm sure you're being familiar with as well, where lots of this is stored. And your head of faculty will share that with you. Use of ICT facilities. We've moved away from, in England, we've moved away from ICT classrooms. Because kids have it here. Yeah? So we ban mobile phones. Here's me, talking like a love actor. But we ban the use of mobile phones in the school. Parents, they like to know where their kids are. So we don't ban them from school, but we ban them from using them in school. And you'll probably find that's the same in the schools that you work with, except for in the lesson where it's deemed appropriate. So the kids can actually use, mobiles, and they can access, if you've got a clip, they can actually access it again. So you might want them to get some further work. If they've got their phones, we allow them to bring it in. We also invest in, more mobile technology, so laptops, iPads, things like that. I mean, we've our library, if you see, we got rid of most of our books, probably akin to Nazi Germany, but it wasn't like that at all. It was to introduce Kindles, because kids, again, are more likely to pick up a Kindle or a mini iPad to read a book than they are to go into a library and pick up a book. So it's by trying to keep up with some of those methods as well, and you'll find in the schools that you go to, and again, particularly academies, but many schools will have invested hugely in iPads, and anybody can give them one, by the way. You have, yeah, and 3 of you have got mini iPads as well coming, and I'm sure when you go to your schools, they've got things like that you can actually use and commit. And you just get these. I mean, I don't know if it happens here, does it? You just get given an iPad or a mini iPads. I mean, it's crazy. But it's about then finding ways of using that. And so, for example, with Apple TV and things, it's great how you can use that for your presentations. You'll be surprised. I don't know what it's like. How advanced is it here at home? It's coming in. Yeah. Whereas I think it's probably about 10 years that they've been really introducing ICT in England, and it used to be part of the judgment of a lesson. I think it might have been on the outstanding criteria, if anybody. But a lot has been done on that. You then will have, the timetable will make sure, particularly in your practical subject areas, will make sure that you have a specialist base. So if you're a science teacher, most of your timetable will be in a science lab, art, design and technology, music. And actually there is the teaching of ICT, where we still have kept some classrooms for the teaching and delivery of that, although that's going to be changing slightly with the new curriculum in September 2014. But you'll have all next year to familiarise yourself with that. We have specialist rooms. Very often what schools will do, and I know we as a school, and I know most schools that I've worked with and in the past, will make sure it's an NQT, you have your own room. Are you aware that you have your own room? Yeah, I think because it's all about trying to make sure your transition is as easy as possible. One thing to keep in your mind is, we want to keep you. We do not see you coming over for 12 months. Yeah, we want to keep you, and stay with us for a number of years. I've worked with Kathleen, and you teach for about 3 years. I think we joke about having a separate Irish staff room, and we keep calling for St. Patrick's Day to be a national day, because there are so many Irish staff in our school. But they've stayed, and numbers of them. It's not like here where you wait for somebody to die to become the head of department. You might find you're being offered a position of responsibility after 1 year because your head teacher wants to keep you. Very, very quickly you'll find the opportunities are fantastic. Use of sports facilities. I mean, with gyms in school, we have the kids have an actual gym where they can work out. Swimming pools. I mean, I never. In Ireland, I never know except private schools with swimming pools. Anybody go to a school with a swimming pool? You'll find many schools in England have swimming pools. I don't know why. Sports facilities. I'm sure if you've been to your school, you'll be pleased with what's on offer. And then technical. Every school will have a network manager, so to give you support to make sure that you're able to deliver your lessons in a very interactive way. Not totally, by the way, because at the end of the day, kids still sit down in the exam hall and do a traditional exam. You can't move too far away from that either. But there is always fantastic technical support on hand for that as well. Right. So this is where I suppose it's quite different from Ireland, but the school year. We were just talking about it last night, actually, and it's one of the things that helped me in my first couple of years when I moved from Ireland over to teach in London, was how the terms are broken up. You have about, is it 10 or 12 weeks summer holiday in the south? 12, yeah? Welcome to 6 weeks summer holidays. However, it's perfect for anybody who, for me, as I said, when I first moved, every half term, so you'll work 6-7 weeks and you'll have a week off. So it's a great opportunity in the first, if you are feeling a bit homesick. So when you're leaving on the 2nd September, to know you'll be home in 6 or 7 weeks' time, doesn't feel that long. And a week is quite a nice time, away from school to get you to refresh and come home and, meet family. 6 weeks after that is Christmas. So it just breaks away from that notion of leaving Ireland forever or leaving Ireland for a year. You're talking 6 or 7 weeks if you're planning on coming home over a half term. So we have an autumn. We never had a spring, a winter term, which is great. I always think there's no winter in education. It's quite nice. You have an autumn, spring, and a summer term. And it's broken down into 6 half terms. And after about 6, 7 weeks, you've got a week off. So you've got a week off in October, a week off in February, around about Valentine's Day, so it's always quite handy. And you've got a week off at the end of May. So those are 3 weeks. And then you've 2 full weeks off at Christmas and 2 full weeks off at Easter. This year we get an extra treat because the Easter, it's bizarre in one sense, the Easter Sunday comes at the last 2 weeks of the holidays. So we get the Monday off, so we get an extra day, but it means that we go back to school on Easter Tuesday. It's a bit bizarre. Here you would always finish on the Holy Thursday. I know we do in the north. Is that still the same down here? Finish on the Holy Thursday and then your holiday would be after Easter. Over there it's not. It's quite fixed. But you get an extra day. So that's always one way to look at it. And then again after that Easter you've got the 6 weeks and another 6 weeks. So I think it's quite nice. Do exactly the same teaching days as you do in Ireland or any other country in Europe, quite frankly. Exactly the same teaching days, 195 days. Just I think it's better because spread throughout the year rather than just that 12-week block where you're just full on, throughout the academic year. And then 6 weeks, let's be honest, how many professions get 6 weeks off in the summer? So we can't complain that much. So that's the school year. And then you'll have what's called inset days, in-service training. Yeah? And I would say all of you will have at least one, but probably 2 of these when you start on the 2nd of September. So if you have any anxieties about going in and teaching your first class at 8:30 on the 2nd of September, it's not going to happen. Yeah? Our first 2 days are inset days, the Monday and the Tuesday. Then what we do is, and most schools I've worked in do the same, on the Wednesday is a day just for year 7, so just for the new pupils. So they have their orientation day with their form tutor, and then in the afternoon they might go to normal lessons. And then the full school really is back on the Thursday and Friday the first week. So there's week 1 done already. Yeah? Wishing your life away. That's what you'll do as a teacher, by the way, I warn you. Certainly that's what I do. But you're entitled to 5 of these throughout the year. So, and generally what schools tend to do is just to get rid of those blues after a holiday. So you'll find when you go back after Christmas, the Monday, you go back will probably be an inset day. After Easter, that Tuesday will be an inset day. So that's how they're spread throughout the year. So you're not always going in that Monday morning straight into it after a break. But it also gives you an opportunity then to work with colleagues, to plan with colleagues. Schools get some different speakers in to come and deliver sessions. Although you'll find what we did was when I went to the school and I went as a deputy head and the head teacher who I'd worked with, she was my head teacher in a previous school. When we went, we realised there was actually such excellence already existing in the school, and so it was just about using that to work with new teachers like yourselves, work with teachers who needed improving, and the inset days give us an opportunity to share some of that excellent practice that already exists within the school. And so it gives us an opportunity to kind of deal with national initiatives like literacy and numeracy and whatever the government thinks is hot and interesting at that particular moment, and a new government will come along and they'll find something else to bring in. What we did as an academy, by the way, we just got rid of all of the nonsense and just went right back to basics about planning, about teaching, and about marking. That's all we get our teachers doing. I think most schools have realised that's key. And as I said, spread throughout the year. And then the school day will vary. We're radicalising our school day from September 2014, but traditionally, largely, you will have. I think there's 2 more riding this.
Oh no, I think that's Aberdeen.
Okay. largely you will have either 5 hours per day, so you have a 25-hour teaching week. You won't teach for 25 hours. As an NQT, I think you'll probably teach about 17, 18 hours in your first year, because you're entitled to a 10% reduction. Normally a teacher, out of the 25 hours, normally they would teach 22. Sound similar to home or not? Is that
22 is the cap here.
22, yeah? So it's similar. 22, we get hours to teach 21. But as an AQT, about 17, 18 hours you should expect. The rest of it is time then for your development, for your support, for your planning throughout the year. Largely made up of 5 1-hour periods or 6 50-minute periods. I don't know if any of your schools do different things. We're moving to, in next September, we're moving to 100-minute sessions, 3 of them a day. We've done a lot of work with another school who followed this model and has had great success. But that's something to worry about for next year. But you might find your school's doing something different. But largely, that's the makeup. As a form tutor then, you'll register your pupils first thing in the morning, and that is legal. As a form tutor, you are legally required and legally responsible to register your pupils. So it's not something you do lightly. There's a legal requirement, and you as a form tutor are responsible for that. And then you'll have an afternoon registration as well. Again, that's a legal responsibility for the form tutor. And it's usually a 10 or a 20-minute session. You'll have assemblies that will be weaved through that as well. And so you might have, if you're a year 7, you might go to on a Monday morning rather than form class. You with your form group will go to an assembly, maybe led by a senior teacher, and then maybe on another day you'll go to an assembly led by the head of year. So the kids will probably have 2 assemblies in your schools. And primary schools have their assemblies more through the day rather than at the beginning of the day. It'll happen, more through the day than at an appropriate time. Most teachers, are required to be, you're required, if school starts at 8:30, you're required to be there 15 minutes before. But most of us get there at around about 8 o'clock, just before 8, just so that you're kind of not running straight into the day. I know Irish teachers always complain about you can't just leave here. Apparently, if you don't teach in the afternoon, you can go home. Unheard of in England. You stay. And most people leave school at around about 5 o'clock because the school day finishes at around 3:30 for some schools. But then there's kind of a range of after school and extracurricular activities that run. So you've got homework classes, revision classes, but sports, whatever your interest is, and you've got something else to bring to the school. That's an opportunity for you to work with a group of kids to get them interested into that as well. Yeah, I said about the 15 minutes before. And then usually you've got 1 meeting per week. So usually you will meet, the faculty will have a meeting, maybe at the beginning of the week or midweek, and you'll meet with your faculty, and that's when you'll talk about your schedules, your schemes of work, issues in the faculty. And then you'll have a pastoral meeting with the head of year. So you're on 2 teams, if you like. You've got your pastoral team, where your role is a form tutor, and then you've got your academic team, where your role is as the main scale classroom teacher. And possibly, although we don't in our school have too many of them, just staff meetings. And they're very often on a 3-week cycle. So we got a little staff meeting, so we can use that time then to concentrate more on the marking. That's largely the meeting schedules that take place. Okay, one of the things I talk a lot about this when I'm doing interviews is behaviour, and I know as NQTs it's one of the things that can be quite frightening and daunting as you move. But there are systems in place in every single school, very tight systems in schools, that you can follow and that you should follow just to make sure that you can manage the behaviour of your pupils appropriately. And that is key to the progress that they make in a lesson. I say this to every new member of staff when they start in our school. If you think that you can do it on your own, and if you think that by going and asking another member of staff, another colleague to help you, if you've got a difficult child, you're really setting yourself up for failure. Yeah, because you can't do it on your own. nowadays, I've no problem if a kid in my lesson, isn't behaving for whatever reason. I've no problem going in and asking another colleague to take them out. I don't see it in any way as an admission of weakness. Yeah, it's a message to the kids that we work as teams, that we're the adults and we work with other adults to make sure they know exactly their place in school. One of the things, we've done an awful lot of work on behaviour in our school. It had gone crazy 10 years ago. Schools were democracies 10 years ago. You'll find they're not democracies anymore. It's now, I'm the teacher, you're the pupil, you do what you're told. And if you don't, out you go. Yeah? So I hope it's probably a bit similar still here. It had gone ridiculous in England. And for that reason, the behaviour was out of control in many schools. So it's about just tightening on that and firming up our expectations, because why shouldn't we expect pupils to behave appropriately in a lesson? You're sent here in a room and there's an expectation about how you behave and engage. Where do pupils learn that, if not in a classroom? Yeah, so there's a lot of work that has been done in schools in England over the past 5-10 years to bring behaviour under control. So you'll find that every school will have a behaviour policy. And it's about making sure that you implement that as well. And that will be found in your staff handbook. You'll find within that a referral system. I'll talk you through that as well. Then you've got your own classroom systems. And again, discipline. Discipline is key. It's one of my kind of, when I talk to new staff, I talk about belief. I talk about behaviour. I talk about expectation. I talk about learning, which is very important. Independence. Equality for them and fun. But the most important thing is behaviour, because if they're not behaving, they're not learning. And it's not just them, it's affecting every other pupil in the lesson. So by not dealing with it, you're doing your 30 pupils a disservice. So some of the sanctions then that I'm sure you are familiar with, they can't be that different. We'll begin with, a detention. And we call them C1s and C2s, consequences. Yeah, consequence 1s, consequence 2s. Most schools have adopted this policy. A C1 is you telling the people off. Yeah? And that's a verbal warning, if you like. If they do not modify their behaviour appropriately, then they get a C2. And that is a 20-minute detention. Now, this is our school, but as I said, most schools will adopt this. Primary might be a little bit different, but essentially, the model will be, the same. They have a 20-minute detention. The government got rid of. There used to be you had to give parents a 24-hour notice of a detention, but the government have got rid of that now. So we're entitled to keep kids behind after school, which is great, I have to say. This is one of the good things the government have actually done for education. But so you'll give them the 20-minute detention that you will handle yourself as the classroom teacher. Now, if that still doesn't work out, you'll give them what's called a C3, and that's really your head of faculty or a senior leader is responsible for the after school. And that's a 45-minute detention. Now, you're not responsible for getting the pupils to that. Thinking back to we talked about the support staff, they're the ones that bring home. They've got, most schools now have bought into these text systems, so the parents will just get a text message, or they're very good at email. There's another thing we have called parent view, where emails go out texts. And this is all information to inform the parents that the child's being disciplined and staying in school. There's also lots of behaviour support as well. Throughout your NQT programme, you'll do a lot on discipline, a lot of behaviour management. And as I said earlier on, it's linked to making sure you're planning for the different groups of pupils. But there are some naughty pupils who will still misbehave regardless of what you do. And it's about how you manage them. If there are more serious incidents, there are incident forms that are you familiar with these incident forms? That you will just, sorry if I'm kind of repeating things, but I think it's just important to go through all of it. But these incident report forms, so it's actually kept in the pupil's file. Because if you ever do get to this stage, and I have set on 2 permanent exclusions, you need to have a watertight case. And unless it's something really grave, like bringing knives into school and, putting someone's life in danger, which, has happened in the past, not to put you off. But unless it's something like that, it's hard to exclude a pupil permanently, unless I've got records going back to those little incident forms that, you as a form teacher or you as a teacher filled in maybe 2 years ago. I'll keep that in that pupil's file, and that shows, sustained poor behaviour for that pupil, which means when I sit in front of the governors and say, I want to permanently exclude, I've got the evidence. So it really, really is important for you to fill those in. And I know there's somebody that does them in my school religiously, and she keeps apologising every time she gives the incident report. She goes, I'm really sorry, but I go, this is great evidence. Yeah, any member of SLT appreciates that. It shows your diligence, but they appreciate it because they will ultimately be keeping records of those pupils. So my advice is don't think you're pestering anybody by doing that. Yeah, that is actually helping.
And would you, if you were doing that one, would you inform the student that you're going to go and find everything?
I would. It's a further threat. Yeah, I would. Absolutely. Anything at all, by any means necessary, is how I manage behaviour, quite frankly. Then, as well, which I'm not so good at, is rewarding good behaviour. My advice is do it. It is. I've always been the disciplinarian. That's how I've kind of moved up. I've always been the one that shouts. So get used to it, rather than you'll hear my voice throughout the school. But you should reward them as well, and their merits, their system of merits, and the kids absolutely, particularly the younger ones, they love them. And you'll find in your schools that these merits build up to all sorts of rewards. We've had kids, there was a boy 2 years ago in my school, every single day, went around the school during lunchtime picking up the litter, and he got so many merits, he ended up getting a mini iPod, one of these iPods, through the merits that he was building up. So they really do, they're great incentives for the pupils. But then there are also demerits as well, so you can take them off them if they're not behaving. Then if a pupil is consistently poorly behaving, we have what's called an on-report. So they might go on to report to the form tutor, because you are their first point of contact in the school. And you'll find you will develop some really, really fantastic relationships with your form group. That'll be one of the reasons why you might want to stay in September 2014, I would imagine, if you really get attached to that group. And so they will go on report to you, and at the end of each day they'll come back and they'll show you their report, so you can monitor how they're behaving throughout the day. If that doesn't work after a week or two, they'll go on report to the head of year, and similarly if they're still causing problems, they'll go and report to someone like me, someone on SLT, that's the red report, and kids absolutely hate being on a red report. You have one or two who think it's like the ASBO, who think it's a great time to have. But there are few and far between. Most people hate being on report because it's a stigma for them to walk around with this report. So what do we do? We make sure we use that stigma to kind of make sure we bring the behaviour in line. We use fixed term exclusions. So, if the child's caught smoking, they're sent home straight away. If a child in school was to stand up and call you a name in your face, whatever, automatic exclusion. Automatic exclusion. So those myths whereby the behaviour is out of control in the English education system, it's changed a lot in the past 5 or 10 years. We've become much more strict with the pupils, because getting back to what we said earlier about developing the person. You go into a bus, you see a sign, you do not verbally abuse a bus driver, you do not verbally abuse someone in the bank. Why should you verbally abuse a teacher in a school? So we kind of make sure we bring that into line. And so, as I said, the education system has changed a lot in terms of behaviour and expectations. And then permanent exclusion. And there are cases when, for whatever reason, the child is just not in the right school. Yeah, it's just not the right school for them, no matter what you do, no matter what support you put in place for them. There's a lot of support for students in schools there, but it just doesn't work. Then you can permanently exclude. But it goes right back to those incident forms, the report cards, all of those that you are meticulously filling in and keeping records of and passing them up. That really makes all the difference. That kind of eradicates that really poor behaviour. Any questions on behaviour before I just move on to? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask you then to get back in. Do you want to work in different groups? Are you quite happy working with the groups that you're in? I'll let you decide. I'm just going to give you some scenarios about behaviour, of things that have happened, that may happen in a lesson. Okay? And I want you to do, I think it's about 7 or 8 scenarios. Just kind of talk about what approach you could use, yeah, to make the situation worse than it is already. Through conversation with your partner, how would you alter the situation, and what actions might you take before the lesson, during the lesson, and after the lesson in each activity? Quite frankly, you just do the second one and the third one. Yeah? So through conversation with your partner, how would you alter the situation in this scenario, yeah, or the outcome? And then just consider your actions before the lesson, during, and after. Okay, I'll do about 10 minutes on that. I spoke already about iPods and kids having access to technology, but you do sometimes have a school rule that just bans the use of them in lessons. What about scenario 1 then? What would you do in the lesson, and what would you do in preparation for the next lesson given that scenario? Anyone want to pick? Anyone want to start scenario 1? The iPod. So.
Turn it into a debate, half the class, and then turn it into a one on one where they should be doing something they shouldn't.
Okay.
They're all against the judge and
Yeah. You can just completely turn it around. Good idea. Yeah. Anyone else?
A bit of a harsh stance to say no. It might have come up with the idea he said in future lessons if the behavior improves and good, we might introduce to the radio.
Yeah. Together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anything else? Also, it's about your judgment. Remember, you are responsible. Yes, we have school rules, but if a member of SLT goes around and you have made a judgment call, and you've asked people to work for 30 minutes in silence, and actually some people do work well listening to music and some don't, and you allow that people to listen to the iPod, I don't really think any member of SLT would look at that harshly. Or in preparation, you might just go to the SLT who works with your faculty and say, listen, I've got this class, I'd like to blah 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 blah. And it's just about thinking in advance and just kind of getting it okayed by someone. Yeah? So there's a range of ways that you could deal with that rather than mine, which would just be to confiscate the iPad or the iPods. Yeah? So there is absolutely a range of ways to deal with that. So people in your class, again, they take the phone out without your permission. You confiscate the phone, but that leads to real distraction, and that can very often happen. That can very often happen. But what do you do in those cases? When that becomes really disruptive? What about a group of that? I mean,
you can ask maybe one of these businesses to make a class and they can bring it up to the office, so it's not even really to ask after.
Get the distraction away. Yeah, absolutely. Take the iPod, or the phone or whatever out of the room. Absolutely. Anything else?
You said that they keep asking for it, you lengthen the time between people in course, and the more they annoy you about it, the longer we ask for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had situations where teachers have put them in the post and sent them home. You just have to do what you have to do to make sure that pupil does not become so distracting in the lesson. You'll find, I can't remember the last time a pupil has kind of taken an issue with a member of staff telling them to put their phone away or confiscating the phone. We just confiscate them and send them right down to the reception, and it's like that. It just gets rid of the issue. If the pupil makes that mad decision to go to the reception to ask for it, that's your excuse to get rid of them. Yeah. So, but no, it's about removing that distraction as well, but not allowing it to become disruptive. Preparation for the next lesson, maybe.
Reiterate the school rules and maybe explain wider information.
Yeah, absolutely. And not even just you. I wouldn't be afraid to get my head faculty in, or even a member of SLT to come in and just reinforce the school rules again. Remember, it's not a weakness. It's the message to that child that we work as a team of adults. Yeah, not to suppress them, but to keep them with us. And so that issue where you will have that class. Oh my God, I've got that class again. Last periods. And they're just awful. Yeah, no matter what I do with that class, we all have them. And you're anxious about it. Yeah, they're loud, excitable, hard to keep focused, and it's the last period of the day. What do you do in preparation for that lesson? A couple of things you do in preparation for that class that you absolutely just hate, and will have one. What do you do?
You just have to be very well prepared with lots of activities.
Absolutely.
Very, this, so that they're busy. Because if they're not busy, they're just going to get those boisterous and things.
We would never, or we try not to timetable English, Maths, or Science last period, your core subjects. Because the last period is the lesson where the kids are a nightmare. You know, they've just come back after lunch. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one of the things we have done as a school, and you might think this is a bit odd. We spend a fortune on footballs. We do, a fortune. And the kids, particularly the boys, they run around all lunchtime playing football. So by the time they come in last period, they're knackered. And actually they're well settled. And that's one of the ways that we have overcome poor behaviour in the afternoon. It's amazing that you end up silly, practical things that you don't need an educational psychologist to give you any advice on, but things like that. But it is then about the activities that you plan for them in that afternoon. And you know, it's about trying to turn it into a positive, not to get, you know, if you think about the alien, not to get bogged down and focus just on that 1 year 9 group who is, you know, the thorn in your side for that year. Yeah, but then focus on all of those other groups that you're doing really, really well with as well, because sometimes that one group can be all you think about, fixate about, and you judge your whole year on that group. And my advice is don't. But it'd be one group there's a group when I moved to a Catholic boys' school in St. Bonn's, actually, in East London, and there was one group I just couldn't break them. I just had to persevere, and I tried everything. I joined in April, and that whole summer term, year 9 boys, just couldn't get them, you know, and in the end I just had to kind of just, you know, give up and look forward to the summer when I wouldn't be teaching them again. But focused on the really good classes that I had as well, and I didn't judge myself just based on that one class. But it is about the activities. And as a school, you know, we're responsible for making those decisions about what happens last year, because it's a key time of the day. Uniform. So what your views, you might have your own views on uniform, and kids certainly have a view on uniform, but what about this year 10 class who just will not wear the uniform properly? What do you do about that?
When I was in school, we had trouble like that. The school I was in wasn't the best behaviour, and there was the whole thing that we had a discussion with one of the English teachers about the uniforms, and the way he explained it to us was that it was getting us used to the idea that when we get older, if we have a job like that there is going to be a uniform, no matter what profession they're in, almost whatever profession, there is a certain uniform, and no matter what you do, no matter what job you're in, you'll have to wear it.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is, that's the way it goes. It's the same rule for everybody. It works for teachers, it works for students, it's a university.
Absolutely, and it's reinforcing that, and it's about consistency as well. Yeah, it's also about modelling, how you model. You know, I mean, we insist that every member of staff wears professional dress, and your schools will, I'm sure, as well, because we don't expect. Well, there's certain things, you know. Sometimes I'll chew chewing gum in school, but students aren't allowed to. But I think it's important that they see, you know, there are certain things that I'm allowed to do that they're not allowed to do. I think they need to know that there's a difference between being a child and an adult. So sometimes I'll just deliberately chew chewing gum, just to remind them that there's a different rule for me, because my, you know, rules are working conditions. Theirs is about being a pupil, and I think it's important for them to understand there's a difference. But there's other, you know, there's certain things. You know, for example, I took a third earring out because the rule is that the pupils. There used to be a rule that the boys only one and the girls 2. But you know, that's a discrimination, isn't it? Yeah. So I deliberately, you know, wear my 2 earrings in school as a conscious decision to remind pupils about that. That's an equality issue. But I took the third one out because that would have been too difficult, because they're not allowed to wear 3 earrings. And that's standard, I'd imagine, for all of your schools as well. But like, you know, those professional judgments and how you model what you wear to school, I think is very, very important when you're having that discussion. We absolutely, and if Helena Mills was here, who's the executive head of our school, was here, she transformed the school that we work in through uniform by insisting, when we arrived, the pupils used to wear their tie down to here and their shirts opened. and it looked appalling. And it just sends out a message that poor behaviour is allowed and tolerable. And now we have every member of staff will insist that the pupils, we just have to do that now. They'll scramble to get their ties tied up there as they can possibly get it. But that transformed the behaviour in the school. And it came from our cleaners walk around with C3 pads. So if the pupils aren't wearing their uniform properly, our cleaners can give them attention. Our caretakers, because every adult in the school is responsible for the behaviour of the pupils. And that's how and why not? Why should they, have more regard for a teacher, a cleaner? Do you know what I mean? It's for them. It's known that the adult is responsible for their behaviour. So we absolutely make every adult responsible for behaviour, but it came down to the tie and how they wear it. And now they're very proud, and I'm sure your pupils will be as well, very proud to walk around the school properly dressed and looking professional. And so it kind of starts with how we model that for them, but that consistent approach from every member of staff around the school will constantly reinforce that you're absolutely right. Let's do one more. Anything that anyone who was particularly... let's go to scenario 8 then. Finish on this. When you've asked the people to step out of the lesson for a moment to take some time out, because you've given them that C1 or that C2, when you go outside later, to see if they're ready to return to the lesson, they become confrontational. In that situation, will you do? Absolutely. I would say there's probably no point, because you've left the class, you've left 29, 25 pupils behind, you don't have 5 minutes to deal with that behaviour, you don't have the time. You probably just have the time to get another member of staff, and there are other members of staff, to just take that situation away. Yeah? And then you'll have to do some follow-up. So in preparation for that, anybody talk about ringing parents? I remember in my second year of teaching, Portia Campbell, she drove me absolutely crazy the whole year. The name sticks in there, drove me absolutely mad. Wouldn't do what I told her, but she was petrified of her mum. So for 3 weeks, I got her mum to come in and sit in my lesson. Portia Campbell never misbehaved in my lesson again. I'm telling you. You do whatever it takes, and any school, any decent school, will allow you to do that. Why not? If she do what mum tells her, a really good, strong African mum, by the way, petrified of her, but Portia never misbehaved again. It's my absolute triumph as a teacher. So, as I different scenarios, different ways to deal with them. But you just have to seek as much advice and as much support from as many of your colleagues and people that you work with throughout the year. So we're going to break now, I think, for about a half an hour for lunch, sandwiches, time for you to chat and relax a bit. And then in the afternoon we'll just finish off just with another practical activity on lesson planning. Okay? Thank you.